Hello everyone and welcome to a game from round 7 of this year's Global Chess League. I'm referring to it merely as a game. You guys said that even saying what kind of a game it was spoiling the experience too much, so I'm just gonna call it a game. It's Viswanathan Anand versus Magnus Carlsen, two former world classical champions, two world rapid champions. It's a game. Let's check it out. And before we do, just wondering if there are any fans of the Final Fantasy franchise. Have you tried Final Fantasy 16? And what is your take on it? I am currently trying it out, so I would like to know what do you think about it. Let's dive straight into the game. Anand has the white pieces, and he opens with with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e6. Magnus goes for the French defense. d4. We have pawn to d5 and knight to c3. We have bishop to b4, the Winawer variation of the French, and now pawn to e5. So they are just battling it out in the main line. c5, the advanced variation. We have a3. Or rather, countering the advanced variation with c5, we have a3, bishop captures, and c3, b captures, and knight to c6. So all very standard stuff here. Queen to g4, and now pawn to g6. We have pawn to h4 by Anand. This is not a new or anything. It has been played many times before, but it's not the absolute main line like knight to f3. Is more of a more of a common move here. Pawn to a4, queen to d1, those are the standard moves, but pawn to h4 it would be like the fourth most popular continuation. So okay, pawn to h6, and now Anand continues with pawn to h5, which is interesting as he won a very nice game against Ruslan Ponomariov in 2007, also with the white pieces in this position where he played bishop to d2. But here he switches the move order a little bit. He plays pawn to h5, g5, now pawn to f4, going straight for Magnus's king. We have queen to a5, now putting pressure on that c3 pawn, and now that bishop to d2 move that he played against Ponomariov. So here we have pawn to f5, chasing away the queen, queen g3, and now pawn to g4. And Magnus locks out the king side completely. Although, if queen comes to h4, maybe the queen could enter the game. For the moment, not really. All of the squares are being covered, so maybe at some point. Here we have d captures on c5, and there is a game that was played also in 2007. Obviously, it was a popular line in 2007 between Alexander Motylev and Yuri Krupa. The game ended in a draw, and it continued with queen captures on c5. But Magnus postpones the capture. He plays knight g to e7, develops the knight, and it is now, as of move 13, that we have a completely new game. So, okay, bishop to d3. Anand continues development, and okay, it's a pretty standard position against the French. You have triple pawns, but what are you gonna do? Queen captures on c5. Anand picks off one of them. Magnus picks off one of them, and now knight to e2. Continuing development, knight to a5. Now the knight can come to c4 if needed, and now queen to f2. Like I said, you could play queen to h4, maybe hope for queen f6, but then rook h8, and the queen really has no business being on h4. So that's why Anand plays queen to f2. He offers a queen trade, and Magnus obliges. Queen captures on f2, we have king captures, and now bishop to d7. And now I will just mention it once again. If you are having issues with notifications from YouTube, do join our Telegram channel. It's the first link in the description below. If you use Telegram, you will receive an instant notification when a video is published. So okay, pawn to a4, also a very standard move against the French. We have king to f7, and now rook h to b1, putting pressure on b7, so the knight has to be careful. So b6, getting rid of this tension, and now bishop to c1. Now the bishop is coming to a3 and will claim this diagonal, which is mostly the idea behind pawn to a4. We have knight e to c6, we have bishop to a3, and now knight to d8. Now the other knight is coming to b7. We have bishop to b4, and just knight d to b7. Now, of course, you cannot capture, the pawns will not be doubled, but even if you could, you're not really looking forward to parting with your bishop pair that soon. So here we have knight to d4, beautiful central square for the knight, and rook h to b8. We have knight to b3, offering a trade of knights, and Magnus declines. Knight to c4, and if Anand wants to continue the game, he will have to, either repeat the position, knight to a4, knight to a5, or he will have to capture on d4. So here we have bishop captures on d4, on c4, d captures on c4, and now knight back to d4. We have rook to c8, and now pawn to a5. so trying to mess up the pawn structure a little bit. But pawn to b5 by Magnus, and now rook to d1. We have bishop to e8, and now knight to e2. Remaneuvering the knight, we have pawn to a6. Now you don't have to worry about the queen side anymore, and rook to d4. Preparing to double up rooks on the d file, we have rook to d8 and rook a to d1. Magnus trades here, and now rook captures on d4. Probably you would be expecting c captures on d4 because this undoubles your pawns, but after bishop to c6, you really have no hope of crossing that d5 square. So it is perhaps better to play rook captures on d4, and our good friend the engine agrees. We have bishop to c6, and now rook to d2. Again, you will have to be careful. You don't want to blunder the g2 pawn, so the rook might also help out with that. And now Magnus could just, move the rook back and forth, but he goes for pawn to g3 check. He offers a pawn sacrifice, but it's not one you are eager to accept, because of course if king captures, then just rook to g8 check, and then you pick up the g2 pawn, and if knight captures, still rook to g8. Now the knight cannot move. It's not the passive position you want to have. So instead we have king to g1. And now rook to g8. We have knight to d4, attacks the bishop, and rook to d8. Pins the knight here. We have bishop to d6, blocking this path, and now bishop to e4. If you play something like knight captures on d6 to try and win a pawn, then knight captures on c6 wins the game, as the rook and the knight are hanging here. So after bishop to d6, we have bishop to e4, and now bishop to b4. We have rook to d5, and here the rook will be nicely protected. It's on a light square, out of the reach of the bishop and the knight, and king to f1. We have knight to d8, and now king to e1. We have knight to c6, and now comes knight to e2. Sorry about that. I got something in my throat. Knight to e2, and now, this is a great attempt by Anand, because if you play king to f1 here, the problem is after, let's say, knight captures on b4, c captures and c3, you will lose material. For example, rook d1, bishop captures, and that's a problem. If rook c1, okay, you just move the bishop, the knight is still hanging. If you move the knight pawn to c2, the pawn is defended, you have no way out of this. So after knight to e2, we have rook captures on d2, king captures, and now bishop captures on g2, knight captures on g3, and now bishop to f3. Now putting pressure on that pawn, and it's a question, how will Anand move the knight if the knight has to guard that pawn? Well, of course, you have to kick away the bishop, king e3, bishop to d1, and now you are putting pressure on both of the pawns with the bishop, and this is quite problematic for Anand. We have king to d2, bishop to g4 now, and king to e3. We have king to e8, and now king to d2. Can the knight just remain on g3 and everything will be okay? Let's check it out. Knight to e7 was played, and now bishop captures on e7. Anand, he does get to trade off some material, but that means that he's now left with this knight that cannot move due to the fact that this pawn will just hang. So king captures, and king to c1. Now Anand will try getting his king up the board, but chances are Magnus will not allow this. We have king to d7, king to b2, king to c6, and now king to a2. We have king to d5, king to a3, and now king to c5. Of course, stopping king to b4, king to b2, and now bishop to d1. The bishop is excellent on this diagonal, but if you just keep it on g4, it doesn't look like you'll be able to make progress. We have king to c1 and bishop to f3. King to b2, and now Magnus throws in a nice pawn to b4. We have c captures on b4, king to d4, now gaining more access with the king here. Pawn to c3 with check, and now king to d3. But this also means that Anand now has pawn to b5, and then the a pawn is becoming a queen. Did Magnus, of course, think of this? Yes, he did, as the bishop covers the a8 square. So pawn to b5, a captures on b5, pawn to a6, and now king to d2. We have pawn to a7, and now bishop to d5. And here, Anand actually still has a good position, and he can draw this, but he has to play knight to f1 check. Point is that after king to d3, there's knight back to g3. And now if you play b4, it's not a problem. See, captures, you're going to deliver a check. And now, not a check, you're going to play king to d2, and everything is fine now. So that's how you That's how you keep a draw here. Anand will play something like knight to f1 check, and we repeat the process all over again. The point is, the black king cannot keep an eye on the c1 square, or rather, he can't control the c1 square once you start pushing the c pawn, because then white cannot play king to c1. If white can play king to c1, black cannot win. He only has a light square bishop. You cannot kick away the white king from a dark square. So that would be the problem. However, Anand played knight captures on f5, and now e captures on f5. This is, I mean, okay, b4 is always winning, and even in this position, it is winning. I can even show it to you because it's a really crazy line, like b4, and now, of course, you cannot capture. We already discussed that if the king controls the c1 square, then you're just going to lose c2, c1. But look at this. If knight to d4, then the win is somewhat more mysterious. B captures on c3 check, king to b1. Now, okay, the knight controls c2, but you will play bishop e4 check, king moves, and now c2. You will win the white knight, and after knight captures, king captures, you will play f5, so you won't overload the bishop. The bishop cannot control f5 and the a8 square, but now you just advance the c pawn. And now after captures, you will move the king, and after e7, you will play bishop to d5 check, king to a3, and now pawn to c2. You will play e8 queen, now comes c1 queen, and of course the bishop and the queen will beat the queen regardless of the passed pawn here. After a few moves, you will just hunt that king, at some point win the pawn with check, and then it's pretty straightforward. But okay, Magnus played for e captures on f5, which is remarkably an even stronger idea. Now Anand plays e6, and now pawn to b4. We have pawn to e7, b captures on c3 with check, king to a2, and now c2. Anand plays a8 queen. He wants to get the bishop off of such an active square, and also he doesn't want c3 to come with check, so he gives up this queen to bring another queen into the game. We have e8 queen, and now we have bishop to e4. Interestingly, c3 here is winning for Magnus, but both of them were extremely low on time here, so it's not easy finding such a move. Point is that once, of course, if you start checking, then at some point the bishop will be able to cover up the black king, and of course if you capture the bishop, then c1 queen again comes with check, and you will be able to win this game. Not come with check, queen g2 check comes with check, and after the king moves, a couple of checks, and then you will be able to cover up with the queen, and then of course the passed c pawn will decide the game. But in the game, Magnus played bishop to e4, both of them, like I said, under extreme time pressure. Queen to d8 check, bishop to d3, and now Anand has only one way to draw the game, and it's I mean, it's so silly to even think about finding this in time trouble, and that is queen to b6. Point is that after c1, queen, or doesn't really matter, you will play queen to e3 check, and white is in stalemate. The pawn covers this square, and the queen covers all the other squares. If you capture, it's stalemate. If you move, you just force the capture, even queen to e2 check, whatever black plays, it's still going to be a stalemate. But Anand played queen to d4. It's the same idea. Anand is preparing queen to e3 with check, but now there's a big difference. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this only winning idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course c1 knight. Magnus brings the knight into the game with check, and now the game is completely winning. The problem is here, of course, if you bring the queen into the game, then again, queen to c3 check, and this will be stalemate. So we've already seen this. But after c1 knight check, it's a different story. Now, what can you play here? Of course, you can play king a1, king to b2, king to a3, whatever you play. If king a1, then knight b3 check just connects nicely with the queen. Royal fork happening there. If king to b2, then it's a bit of a longer win. Knight to a2 chases away the queen, and after the queen moves, you just advance the pawn because you control all of these squares. You just don't care. c2, and okay, you can give a check, block the pawn a little bit. You can here, okay, there are better moves than playing king to d1, but you don't have to do it. You can even do this. You can give up the knight, the trade queens, and your extra piece will still win the game here. So really, it's a non-brainer. And after king to a3, which Anand played in the game, now pawn to c3 by Magnus, queen to b6, and now knight to e2. We have queen captures on h6, creating a passed pawn, which could be very relevant. Anand now has plans of stopping the passed pawn by sacrificing the queen and then promoting his passed h-pawn to a queen, c2, and now queen to b6. And here, incredible as it may sound, Magnus did not play c1 queen. This comes with check, and Magnus did not play it. That's you can imagine how intense the game was if Magnus did not play this. Maybe he just didn't think of it. I don't know. Instead, he played knight to c1, and now Anand is the one who is in a better position, because now Magnus has to waste another move to get the knight out of the c1 square, promote, then Anand will sacrifice the queen, and then will you be able to stop the passed h-pawn? I don't know, because queen to c6 was played, and now knight to e2, and it was in this position on move 72 that Viswanathan Anand lost on time, and I mean, what a game. Here, the problem is, it's not the same. Okay, you do get a queen, but it's now Anand's move, h6. And now, okay, you do get a queen, but now Anand happily gives up the queen. Queen captures, knight captures h7. And after knight to e2, h8 queen, you will pick up the f4 pawn. And yes, you still have the knight and bishop. You have a passed pawn. It's even a protected passed pawn, but now the passed pawn is too far away for you to do anything. It will be either black draws this or white just wins this. As usual, an incredible showing by both of them. Anand and Magnus always deliver the absolute best chess, and here they did so once again. We could say someone was luckier here, someone wasn't, but they say that luck favors the strong, and Magnus indeed was the stronger player here. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Thomas Veterli, Rob Carroll, UI UC, Federico Torres Velazzo, Dan McCormick, and James Eugene Cashman for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And sorry about my throat issues. I think they are getting much better. I think maybe like a day or 2 at most, and I will be once again fully operational. See you soon.